Now, Gauteng Premier Phanyaza Lesufi has highlighted 5 priority areas in his State of the Province address, including safety and security, Etolls, and the city's economic prosperity. Now, political analyst Professor Kedibone Phago joins me now for some analysis. Professor Phago, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for your time. Welcome to Newzroom Afrika. Just as we try and make sense of some of the promises and the bold assertions made by Gauteng Premier Phanyaza Lesufi, the issue around the presence of the crime prevention warden Phanyaza, that ruffled a few feathers, leading to a lot of discomfort with opposition parties saying that they felt intimidated. I mean, the DA, for one, saying it's a sign of desperation. What do you make of it?
Good morning, and thanks for the invitation. Yes, I think it's an important point for consideration because, indeed, I think the opposition parties may have some points there to try and make sense of what is the role of these crime wardens and what qualifications do they have. So I think it's going to remain a highly controversial point until there is a way of either linking them to maybe the traffic officer system or the metropolis, or maybe we need a completely new act. So I don't know. It's very confusing, I think, even to the public if these crime wardens do have the right to arrest or to. So it is really something that I think the president or even the minister of police need to get involved and clarify this. Otherwise, it can cause a lot of anarchy and create a lot of constitutional problems in the country.
Yeah. What we did here yesterday, of course, is Lesufi really talking about the opportunity that it presents for the wardens who were unemployed and are now employed and able to fend and look after themselves without relying on the state. But the 5 priority areas that Phanyaza Lesufi spoke of, which stood out for you the most as he made those bold assertions?
Thanks, Mpo. I followed Premier Lesufi quite closely, and so obviously, I mean, the issue of township economy, for example, in my view, it's something that I think needs to be looked into, especially because many of the crime incidents are concentrated in townships, in informal settlement, and so I think we may, especially in Gauteng province, I think it's one of the provinces in Johannesburg itself, one of the crime scenes of the world. So we need to reflect much more on that and say, how best can we make our communities, our townships, environment safer? I think the crime levels in this country, in Gauteng province, have really reached crisis proportions. Yeah. So for me, if we are able to really provide very substantive proposals on what is it that we want to do, I will be the happiest citizen of the province.
Yeah. Another point of concern is that around the Etolls. I mean, we know that in his State of the Province address last year, Lesufi announced that a permanent demise of the disastrous Etolls in the province, which had been a headache for residents, motorists for years on end. And, he stuck to his guns this year, saying that Etolls will be gone by the end of March. But, of course, there's a lot of other questions on how they will be funded out, where the money will come from, and the breakdown of the portions that need to be paid and by who.
Yes, so it's a very good analysis on that. I think that the issue of Etolls has been highly controversial, and part of the controversy is on the basis of the challenges we have on what is called intergovernmental relations perspective or framework that needs to guide how these should be facilitated. So, for example, you've got the Gauteng province where the Etolls are, so the provincial government also needs to play its role. Then you have got the Department of Transport that is actually mandated constitutionally so to deal with and address the road and road infrastructure issues. But you also have National Treasury that is responsible for allocation of the budget votes and so on. So I think until we hear something maybe from the President or from the Minister of Finance, it is just going to be a talk after talk if it's only coming from Gauteng provincial government.
As you spoke a short while ago about your concerns around the state of the province insofar as crime is concerned, the other factor, of course, which stands out is that of unemployment, specifically looking at youth unemployment, the high levels there. We heard Lesufi speaking about how he's going to avail skills training to 40,000 young people living in townships. What's your thoughts around that?
So it's a very big problem in South Africa, and Gauteng is the most populous province in the country, and so takes the bulk. But I think maybe one positive aspect is that the Gauteng province is is actually the main economic hub of the country and even of the continent. So this, for me, means that we need to find ways of attracting investors who are going to create employment. Government, it's not the role of government to create the primary role of government to create employment. The government's role is to create conducive environment so industries, investors, entrepreneurs, business people can find a way of creating real economic values for South Africans. So to come up with job creation from the provincial government, I think it's good, but it's not going to be a sustainable activity that we should really cherish.
What about the other initiatives? I mean, there's the Nasi Spani, which was spoken to in June of 2023, where it was launched, and a campaign offering 8,000 jobs in the provincial government. How effective are such initiatives looking at the plans around boosting the province's economy?
Yes, I think it's anything that we can do as a country to create employment needs to be supported. But I think we need to be much more practical and realistic on what are the real economic drivers that are going to help us create employment. So if we cannot nurture entrepreneurship and support businesses, especially SMMEs, to grow and bring about viable local economic development activities, I can tell you that these interventions will not be sustainable, because this would just be more of a welfare state that we are just giving out handouts. And I don't think South Africans really appreciate the handouts, because we've got a very intelligent community and society that need to take full responsibilities for their lives, work for themselves, and improve their own socio-economic conditions. So the role of government is and should be to find ways of attracting investors so that these local economic development activities find traction in our economy.
Yeah, we heard Lesufi saying that over the past year, South Africa's economic hub has seen an increase of well over 90,000 jobs, and saying that in the last 90 days, an additional 30,000 or so jobs have also been added, which he then said is a show that the economy was firmly back on track. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think it's a pie in the sky. Our job crisis is really real, and it's very serious, and a lot of people are actually been losing more jobs, and we saw from the figures coming from the World Bank and from our own national treasury that our economic growth is very, very sluggish. So it is not growing at the level that we need, and that is partly why we are struggling to create employment. So I think we need to go and look at what are the real economic drivers as a government, as a country, and make sure that we actually support those. But I think many of the interventions that are political are not always very sustainable, and I think the stopgap measures must be welcomed, but we need a much more consistent and robust system that would help South Africa in terms of the development of skills in the country. So we need major programs that will train young people so that they are able to depend and rely on their own initiatives because they do have the skills that the economy needs. So for me, that is a very important element that can help sustain our growth, our economic growth.
Let's go back to the issue around crime. I mean, you spoke a bit about that. We know that as a measure to curb the rising incidence of crime in the province, the Gauteng Premier did speak about CCTV cameras and helicopters and the partnership that the province has with a company to ensure that the smart cities that Lesufi likes to speak of are really a reality. What do you think of that?
I think we have a crisis when we talk about the issue of crime in South Africa, and many of us have been in one form or the other being affected by this scourge of crime in the country and in Gauteng province in particular. So I think we don't need a lot of talk, but we need to see what are the critical interventions in place from our the law enforcement agencies, our state security agency, our police, our metro police. So I think until we are able to deal with these things in these centers, especially in urban centers, I think it's good to have the cameras, it's good to have the crime wardens, but I think we need a much more sophisticated technology that will help us really get rid of crime. So we need plans in place, we need strategies that can be presented to South Africans so that we see this is serious. For now, I just think that we are really being taken for a ride, and our leaders, I think, must take this upon their shoulders that their communities, their voters, the residents are just not safe in South Africa.
Yeah. When you talk about being taken for a ride, I mean, that really bodes with what opposition parties have said after the Premier's address, saying that, as they try and poke holes into the address, they're saying that given that this is an election year, they believe that some of the promises and the assertions made by Lesufi are just simply unrealistic.
Yes, I think it's an opportune time for any politician to sound a bit populist and demonstrate, even if it means to hoodwink South Africans in a way that they believe that government is working. But I think we, as residents, are experiencing life differently when we drive on our roads, when we interact amongst each other. So I think until the day we are able to see that there is a difference that the government is making in terms of, keeping us safe, in terms of growing the economy, in terms of people getting employment that is sustainable. I think we need to keep on engaging this in this conversation.
Yeah.